It's Sunday, November 30th, 2025. I'm meteorologist Brian Shields. One winter storm on the move, but a bigger and more dynamic one right here. In this video, I want to go over the specific snow totals and where some of the freezing rain and ice will be. We'll go step by step. Take a look at this. Now, this is a snapshot ahead. This is as we work our way late into Tuesday. We work our way toward New England, back through the mid-Atlantic. There's going to be a difference in the track of this versus the European versus the GFS or American model. Here's the GFS American model, and it shows the center of this area, really kind of where that energy is, very close to Cape Cod on the islands, more of a northerly track, and that would mean closer to New England. That would mean higher snow totals. So there's a difference in the track, and you can see it right here. Here's the European model. Here's Cape Cod on the islands, more to the south. That's where this is. If it takes more of a southerly track like the European model has, that will mean less in the way of some snow totals. So some lower snow totals with a European model. And you get a sample of this. I'm going to break this down region by region, very specifically in this channel, but this just gives you a feel if the American model is right, and this is closer, the center of this closer to Long Island, Rhode Island, or Cape Cod, we get some of those higher snow totals. But if it's a little bit more to the south, like the European model has, you see how some of those snow totals lessen, and we'll break it down. And with a system like this, especially kind of early in the season, we're not quite yet in winter, it's going to be really hard to tell. Usually have a good handle on kind of which one will really shake out. It's going to be kind of hard to tell as we go forward. The track will stay dynamic. So with that, we'll just be tracking this together. Now, let me start with what's going on right now. By the way, as this evolves, I'll put out some new updates. So if you're subscribed, you'll get those notifications and you'll get those updates first. Here's the tail end of that system that's lifting up toward the Great Lakes with some of the rain swinging all the way back from Mississippi right up through the mid-Atlantic. Higher terrain, mixing in a little bit of that snow or sleet at some times. Here's that spin, though, as we swing over toward the Great Lakes. As we work our way toward Ontario, Quebec, southern sections, getting some of that snow. You see some of the snow leaving Wisconsin, still kind of clipping by Lake Forest, watching that swinging back toward parts of Michigan. Some of the snow showers we've been seeing from overnight and this morning, New York, swinging back toward Pennsylvania, right over toward Harrisburg. You see some of the rain kind of snow swinging right in through here. Get over toward the DC metro area. We're talking mainly a cold rain that is sliding by. So that's the first system. Now, let me show you the second system. This is the bigger one and more dynamic one. Let's start here and just go out in time. I want to show you how this begins. As I mentioned yesterday, it pulls in a lot of moisture from the Gulf. So as we work our way into our Monday afternoon, there's the rain. Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Panhandle of Florida. North side, we get a little bit of that mix in the pink shading there. And then it really evolves further as we work our way into Tuesday morning. So tomorrow night into Tuesday morning, you see some heavier rain, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, much of Virginia. But then we'll be watching exactly where that rain snow line will be, where it's setting up. And I'll show you in this video too some of the icing in there. And then by the time we get into later on Tuesday, this system continues to lift up toward New England and the Atlantic region of Canada, which I'll break down as well. We don't leave anyone out on this channel, covering everyone with each storm that swings by. Now let's get a closer perspective here. This is back to today. So looking at this time frame, that first system leaves. So let's jump out ahead of time into Tuesday morning. This is Tuesday morning, and you can see here, I mentioned it's going to be dynamic. I'm not going to be quite sure exactly where the track of this will be. So with that, watching very carefully some of the icing right in through here. Higher terrain, of course, back toward Virginia, Panhandle of Maryland, mainly snow. But then we swing back toward the DC metro area, back toward Baltimore. I'll break down some of the snow totals. Most of it, though, is going to be north and west. Then we swing back here. The center of it, somewhere over here, could be a little bit closer to Cape Cod, maybe a little bit more to the south. But this is Tuesday afternoon, watching over toward New England for some of that snow right in through there. Parts of New York, watching back toward Albany. New York City, we're looking at mainly a rain event, but I want to talk about that in a second. We could see some snow in some spots. We'll swing into that. And then by the time we get into Wednesday morning, that'll be pushing off more toward the Atlantic region of Canada. So let's cover that angle. Here we are. Here's New York, Boston. This is that little system sliding by today over toward Prince Edward Island, back toward Newfoundland. With this one, as we work our way into Monday, this is tomorrow. That's mainly a rain event. But here comes the next system, the more dynamic system. You see it right here, that snow sweeping by Pennsylvania, New York, moving into New England, Cape Cod, the islands, back toward Rhode Island, most of Connecticut, seeing some of that rain in through there. And then you see that snow lifting, clipping by especially southern sections of Maine, watching Vermont, New Hampshire. And then as we work our way into Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, that's when we could see some significant snow and some heavier rain closer to the coast, Avalon Peninsula, swinging all the way back toward Nova Scotia. We're looking at seeing some rain, but on the north side of this, we could get some snow, then some wraparound snow as we work our way into Wednesday afternoon, and then that system will be departing. So let's highlight the snow totals. Now, as we go forward on this channel, we will be able to really fine tune if the American model's right or the European model's right. This scenario is going to be a little different. It's going to be kind of a wait and see, just because of how dynamic the atmosphere is this time of year. The positioning of this system as it develops will be tricky the whole way through, but this gives you a feel of some of those snow totals and getting a little more specific for you, and we'll go region by region. Here's a feel for us as we work our way into the middle of the upcoming week. You take Boston, for example, we're going to be on the edge of it. Now, here's the deal. This time of year, too, you may get some snow falling from the sky. Here's New York. You may get some snow, some flakes mixed in, but the surface is still relatively warm. So it could actually be snowing, but not sticking. It's going to be one of those scenarios. Boston, very much on the edge. We swing just more toward the west, swing back toward, I say, Southborough, Marlborough, back toward Worcester. That's where we could get some more significant totals. Boston itself, not quite as much. Cape Cod and the islands, not a lot. Watching coastal sections over toward the shore of New Jersey, Delmarva, mainly a rain event. We get back toward Philadelphia, though. That's where we'll be on the edge of it again. Boston, New York, Philadelphia, similar scenario where maybe we get some flakes mixed in, maybe we get a coating in spots, but heaviest will be just back toward the west. And then you look at Albany, for example, the European model showing about 4 inches, the American model showing about 8.5. Yeah, that's a big difference, but point being, we're going to be getting some snow as we work our way back toward the Albany area. So watching that. Now, as we swing here, of course, southern sections, as I mentioned, we're dealing with mainly that rain event, but to the north, we'll be watching out for some snow, just like what we're seeing along the rest of the I-95 corridor. The DC area, mainly a rain event out of this. We'll be on the edge of it, though. Of course, you swing north and west, we'll see some higher totals. Maybe we get a little snow mixed in, but for the most part not sticking. Could be a coating in some spots, and of course to the south, we're dealing with some of that rain. Then we swing up here. In this particular model, the data cuts off. I leave nobody out, so I want to show you specifically some of those snow totals, and then we'll expand out using different resources. This gives us a feel. I highlighted Boston earlier. Here's Montreal. Again, heaviest stuff should be to the just to the south, but on the edge of it, as we get into southern sections of Quebec, we get over toward New Brunswick, watching out for some of those snow totals. That could be upwards of 6, about 7 inches of some snow, over 150 millimeters of some snow. But you see, again, not a whole lot for the most part of Montreal, but if this shifts a little bit to the north, that could really change. So giving you the heads up on that. And then we swing over here where the data starts to cut off. It just really depends on the track of this. So wait and see. Right along the water, maybe not as much, but you jump inland, it could be a little bit more. Keeping an eye near the Avalon Peninsula, parts of Newfoundland, where we can see about 6 to 8 inches of snow. Getting over toward Nova Scotia, we'll see some spots. Right along the coast, the American model is not showing a whole lot. European model is showing more, though, so it's going to be kind of a wait and see on that track. But watching Nova Scotia, back toward Newfoundland in particular, of course, keeping an eye on New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, this here based on the European model, but we could see kind of a fine line, a very sliver of some heavy snow totals. Maybe not so much to the north, maybe not right along the coast on the Atlantic. In between, there could be that significant snow event. So we'll be tracking that as well for the Maritimes, the Atlantic region of Canada as a whole. Now, watching the icing with this, again, as this all evolves as we go forward, we're going to have rain here, some snow on the backside. But watching out in through here, some sleet or some freezing rain that could be mixed in. Surface relatively warm this time of year, but just in this pocket, anywhere from Asheville north all the way up toward James Madison, you get over toward Harrisburg. That's where we could see, I mentioned Roanoke yesterday, some of that icing, some of that freezing rain potential. So keeping a very close eye on that. A lot of angles to this system. Now shifting off toward the west, we work our way back through Colorado, Utah, for example. Not a major major system dropping in. We're going to see from, say, British Columbia back through Alberta. Let's jump there. Kind of filtering in down toward the south. We'll see some additional rain totals, snow totals. So just trying to cover everyone. But we'll watch out for some bigger systems down the road coming into British Columbia, Pacific Northwest. We'll be covering that even down toward California as we see winter evolving. Of course, we're not quite yet into winter. So this storm system is going to be building. The track will stay dynamic. That's just kind of how it's going to be. So we'll be watching kind of where the center of this shapes up just off the coast of the mid-Atlantic in New England. Higher totals, of course, inland. And as I mentioned, in some areas, we may get some snow falling, but it may not stick, and it will be a fine line. Philadelphia, for example, a very fine line. You work toward the west, we could see some snow over toward King of Prussia, maybe not as much in Philadelphia where it could just be a rain event. Wait and see on that, and we'll be tracking that together. So thank you for taking the time to subscribe and being part of this channel. Hope you're doing well. Have a good rest of your day.